the Ellen situation.
Yeah.
You know, people found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually a bitch. And everybody, whoa,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was. My buddy Greg, who was one of her writers, was like, she's a piece of shit. And he was like, she's a monster.
All these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person.
She was the queen of nice, the dancing darling of daytime TV. Every weekday, millions tuned in to see Ellen DeGeneres flash that warm smile, hand out gifts, and preach her famous "Be kind" mantra. But what if I told you that kindness was just a costume? Behind the glittery stage lights, there was a very different story.
It's like a beautiful name, Isis.
Ellen's rough. That's
Ellen
a
is
rough
like
one.
an old.
But it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show.
It led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person.
Not just a few rumors whispered in Hollywood circles, but a flood of allegations from former employees, writers, and insiders who all painted the same disturbing picture. They say Ellen wasn't just moody or difficult. According to one of her own former writers, she was a monster. One staffer said working there was like walking on eggshells, but with spikes.
When you see, like, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice, but that people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced. People that are like that all the time, she doesn't seem nice. It's very forced. And whatever, you're allowed to be a right. You're allowed to be nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing. What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life, and it's like Abu Ghraib where they're hooked up to wires and they
Dogs
have like
around them.
Others claimed you weren't even allowed to make eye contact with her in the hallways. Imagine that a talk show host known for human connection, allegedly refusing to acknowledge the humans around her. What really shocked people wasn't just that these claims existed, but that they were about Ellen, America's sweetheart.
I have a question for you on this. This is perfect for you. Because I'm seeing this week that there is an attempted comeback by somebody who did not cross one of those fateful lines of the misstepping on their sacred cows of gender or race or sexuality.
Yeah.
But she was said to be a nasty biatch, and that's Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
So her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, oh, I had this birthday party, and Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, like, no, I did invite you, Ellen. That's not what happened. And Ellen had blown her off and then tried to play the victim on the set with her. Anyway, it led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person. And
the woman who danced with kids, handed out giant checks, and hugged everyone from A-listers to viral sensations. The fall from grace wasn't just steep, it was public and brutal. She disappeared. Her image shattered. The world realized that maybe the smiling face they saw for 30 minutes every afternoon didn't match the real Ellen who ran the show behind the scenes. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now let's continue.
all these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person. So she eventually got canceled, but now she's coming back. She's got a Netflix special. That's the right response.
Yeah.
She's got a Netflix special. And here's the capper. On the promo, and apparently there's now articles out about from people who have seen the preview, she plays the victim.
As the cracks in Ellen's image started to show, the floodgates opened. Former employees, interns, writers, people who had spent years behind the curtain began sharing their stories. And these weren't mild complaints about a tough boss. They were stories that sounded more like a dystopian drama than a TV studio. One person claimed Ellen created such a hostile environment that staff were too afraid to speak. Another revealed they were explicitly told not to look her in the eye if they passed her in the hallway. Think about that. You're working on The Ellen Show, a place that's supposed to be all about joy and kindness, and you're being warned not to make eye contact with the host. The worst part? These weren't isolated incidents. Story after story came out, all pointing to the same toxic atmosphere that seemed impossible to imagine considering the show's bubbly exterior. It was like living in a funhouse mirror version of reality. The happier it looked on screen, the darker it felt backstage.
Have they made progress with the strike?
They're picketing right now, so I think it's the early stages. I would think it might take a little bit with this one.
When someone crosses the writer strike, that's some dirty shit. They cross the picket line.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody doing that yet.
I think Ellen did. I had a buddy of mine who was writing on Ellen. Everybody kind of knows now what she's really all about. And that's another one of those. Like,
press.
I'm so nice and I'm so sweet. Being behind the scenes.
Joe Rogan, who's never shy about calling out hypocrisy, summed it up bluntly. He compared the show's backstage to Abu Ghraib. Harsh? Definitely. But it made people stop and ask, was there really that much fear and dysfunction hiding behind the smiling facade? As more people spoke out, the carefully curated illusion of Ellen's kindness began to unravel. Not only were staff allegedly mistreated, but the rules of behavior seemed more fitting for a military base than a daytime talk show. And this was just the beginning. Things really started to spiral after one specific moment went viral: Ellen's awkward interview with actress Dakota Johnson. What was supposed to be a light, friendly chat turned into something that exposed cracks in Ellen's image for millions to see. Ellen tried to joke that she hadn't been invited to Dakota's birthday party. It was the kind of playful jab you'd expect from a talk show host.
This is for me. And she actually has the nerve to say that she was run out of Hollywood. This person
with she with $100 million in her pocket.
$450 million, according to Forbes. That's a low estimate.
Yeah.
Because so now she's out there saying, I was run out of Hollywood. She's actually reportedly complaining about how hard it is for women in America with the double standards.
Look at Oprah, how hard it is for her.
Oh, she's got, like 10 houses, Ellen DeGeneres?
Michelle Obama, look how hard it is for women in America. They're hurting.
They're going to let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows.
But Dakota didn't play along. She calmly corrected Ellen, saying she had invited Harrend, that Ellen just didn't show up. The mood shifted instantly. You could feel it. Ellen, who had built a career on controlling the tone of every conversation, was caught off guard on her own stage. That short exchange triggered a media storm. It wasn't just about a party. It was about the vibe, the tension, the way Dakota stood her ground while Ellen tried to play the victim. Suddenly, the audience started wondering how many other moments like this were covered up, edited out, or brushed aside. The Dakota clip opened the door for deeper questioning. It didn't take long before old staffers, ex-employees, and industry insiders started speaking louder. Ellen wasn't just someone who had a bad day.
Look at it.
Oh, well, you know where that is too, right? It's a similar image to that, right?
No.
I know Jamie does.
What is it?
It's on the set of a famous talk show that's now not on anymore.
Oh, Ellen? Was that Ellen?
Yeah.
Really?
Just look at the temple and then look at the...
Let me see Ellen's background.
She was becoming known as someone who treated people poorly as part of the culture on her show. And this wasn't just about rumors anymore. It was personal accounts, visible tension on camera, and a reputation that was starting to fall apart in front of everyone. Now here's where things started to feel like a complete unraveling, because people weren't just calling out Ellen anymore. They were pulling apart the entire brand she built her empire on. That happy-go-lucky, dance-happy, be-kind-to-everyone image wasn't just a personality. It was a carefully packaged, mass-marketed brand strategy. And once people started looking at it through that lens, the whole thing felt fake, manufactured, as if kindness was just a label slapped on a machine that didn't care what was really happening inside. Ellen's catchphrase wasn't just something she said, it was something she sold, and people had been buying it for years. Joe Rogan, always quick to challenge public narratives, picked up on this instantly. He didn't see Ellen as just a celebrity with a bad attitude.
She's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows. Nastiness, that's their bread and butter.
Well, I think everyone, I will say, like, the resentment, I think everyone should have a chance for reconciliation. I don't think Jesus exempted anybody. And so I do, while it does, because I have been allowed back in, but I don't hold any grievance and resentment. It's very important. And I would just say for Ellen, the resentment, you have to get over resentment to whatever addiction or addictive qualities happen, to get over it.
He saw her as the face of a larger problem in entertainment, where kindness is marketed, not lived, where smiles are rehearsed, not sincere, and where being nice is part of the PR package, not the personality. What made this more explosive was the contrast. Ellen didn't market herself as edgy or unpredictable. She marketed herself as safe, as comfort. And when that started to feel fake, the betrayal cut deeper. The backlash wasn't just about mistreatment, it was about being lied to. The public realized that maybe, just maybe, Ellen's niceness was the biggest act of all. And just when you thought it couldn't get any messier, enter Megyn Kelly. While Joe Rogan was breaking down Ellen's fake nice persona with his usual no BS attitude, Kelly came in with the scalpel. She wasn't there for the drama, she went straight for the infrastructure, the business behind the brand. Kelly didn't just look at Ellen the person. She looked at Ellen the empire, the production company, the management, the corporate environment that propped up the smiling host on screen while, behind the scenes, things were allegedly boiling with pressure and fear.
Her and Bush are jumping around. I mean,
that's right. She was buddies with Bush. That was like
she's
one of the
a
first.
CIA agent. Stephen Paddock. And do not ask me for sources, but Stephen Paddock.
Who's that?
He was the guy that shot up the Vegas concert. That was a very tragic thing. Listen to this. The only guy that saw Stephen Paddock alive, his name is Jesus Campos. He was a guard at Mandalay Bay. He got interviewed nowhere else. You know where he got interviewed in the beginning?
Ellen. Really?
Weird. And then they went on, if you could find that clip, they went on with a weird, like, diagram of how it happened, and Ellen's, like, showing the people how it happened. Not like an emotional, like, how are you feeling, how are you holding up? It was a weird diagram of, like, and then he went to the left and to the right. It was very strange to, look, what the hell's going on? This is a daytime show.
Lawsuits, staff complaints, high turnover known of it aligned with the public image Ellen pushed on daytime TV. What Kelly exposed was bigger than gossip. She showed how media companies protect their star show complaints get buried, staff concerns get ignored, and the show keeps rolling as long as the ratings stay high. For years, Ellen was a cash machine, and no one wanted to unplug it. The smile was profitable. The truth? Not so much. And let's talk about how Ellen responded. Instead of an apology or accountability, what did she do? She went full victim mode. I was run out of Hollywood, she claimed this, while sitting on a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars and gearing up for a brand new Netflix special. Kelly didn't buy it, and neither did the audience. It was becoming clearer by the day. The empire of nice wasn't built on kindness. It was built on control, image, and silence.
That should tell you
uniform.
something.
Yeah.
Like, that's an odd look with all those buttons. Like, why do you have so many wrist buttons?
It was given to her in Langley.
The only reason why you have that many wrist buttons if you're looking at clothesline somebody.
Yeah, look at her. Look at her. Everyone says she looks so friendly. She looks friendly.
She does look very military.
Yeah, she's a militant woman.
With a very expensive watch,
She dealt with a lot of discrimination when it came out. It was very sad, but then she joined the CIA.
Her house got broken into while she was at home.
Really?
Yeah. She got a dope place in Montecito.
And they broke in while she was there.
Yeah.
And those people are still being tortured to this day.
Probably.
They're still in an underground jail.
Yeah.
Until now. So while Ellen was busy staging a comeback with her Netflix special, painting herself as the misunderstood victim of cancel culture, Joe Rogan wasn't having any of it. He went deeper. picking apart the idea that this was just some celebrity gossip story. For him, it was cultural commentary straight up. He pointed out something that hit hard. Ellen wasn't just a person who lost her cool once or twice. She was the blueprint for a growing trend in celebrity culture, selling an image so hard that people forget to question what's actually real. Ellen turned "Be kind" into a brand, a slogan, something to be printed on mugs and t-shirts. But behind the scenes, according to those who worked for her, it was the opposite: fear, pressure, and cold indifference. And let's not forget what that work environment reportedly felt like. Joe compared it to a place where people felt watched, controlled, and completely disposable. Employees weren't just unhappy, they were scared. Imagine being part of a show that promotes joy and love to millions, but you're terrified to speak up, terrified to make a mistake, terrified to even look at the host the wrong way. The real scandal wasn't just Ellen being mean, it was the total disconnect between what the public was sold and what insiders were living every day. Rogan didn't need Ellen on his show to make the point. He saw the bigger picture. This wasn't about one woman being rude. It was about a system that rewards image over integrity and how long that lie can last before it cracks. And just as Rogan was laying bare the cultural rot underneath Ellen's carefully polished image, Megyn Kelly kept slicing through the corporate gloss like it was wrapping paper.
Also,
I'm
to
just
admit
like,
your
of
mistakes.
all people on earth to be feeling sorry for herself, Ellen DeGeneres should not be on the list.
She should at least, but make a real apology and do it.
There's no apology. It's just woe is me. I was run out of Hollywood as she speaks from this grandiose stage on Netflix. Hello, you haven't been canceled if you are doing a Netflix special. She got $20 million for the one before this. I'm sure she's fine.
She didn't just talk about Ellen's behavior, she showed how the entire machine around her allowed it, protected it, and even thrived off it. Kelly looked at the workplace not as a quirky Hollywood set, but as a pressure cooker. Employees weren't just managing celebrity egos, they were juggling deadlines, ratings, and non-stop stress, while being allegedly treated like they were disposable. Complaints? Ignored. Concerns? Brushed off. Because the show had one job: to keep Ellen on that pedestal, smiling and dancing, no matter what. And when things got ugly, the press mostly stayed quiet. Kelly called that out too. She showed how the media, obsessed with preserving Ellen's wholesome image, tiptoed around the truth. Articles were soft, interviews were softball. No one wanted to be the first to break the spell. Meanwhile, Ellen's response was more eye-roll than accountability. She didn't just say she was mistreated, she claimed to be driven out of Hollywood. Like she was some victim of injustice, not someone at the center of a long list of disturbing allegations. She even said it's hard being a woman in America. This, coming from someone living in luxury, with homes in Montecito and millions in the bank. Kelly didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't play along. Instead, she turned the spotlight directly on the hypocrisy. Because when someone like Ellen, backed by massive money and media, starts crying victim, something smells off. And here's where it all starts to come together. Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly weren't just pointing fingers at Ellen, they were showing the world something much bigger. Ellen became a symbol of a deeper problem: celebrities who use kindness as a costume, who turn morality into marketing and expect no one to question it. Rogan called out how public personalities build these carefully controlled imagi-smiling, generous, loving on screen, while behind the scenes it's a completely different story. He wasn't just talking about one toxic boss. He was highlighting a culture that lets public figures perform decency instead of actually living it. Kelly took it further. She exposed how the entertainment industry builds these unshakable brands and then protects them like fortresses. Ellen wasn't just a person, she was a product. Her name, her show, her brand worth hundreds of millions, and the industry had every reason to protect that investment, no matter who got hurt along the way. Their commentary wasn't petty gossip, it was a cultural reset, a moment where people stopped clapping and started asking questions. If Ellen, the queen of nice, could hide this kind of darkness behind the curtain, who else was doing the same? And suddenly, Ellen's story wasn't just about her anymore. It became a mirror, forcing people to take a hard look at how we treat fame, image, and power. Because once you start peeling back that shiny surface, it's hard to stop. And what you find underneath isn't always what you hoped. Then came one of the strangest twists in this entire saga detail that made people stop and say, wait, what? Back when the tragic Las Vegas shooting happened, the only person who saw the shooter, Stephen Paddock, alive, was a security guard named Jesus Campos. And guess where he gave his first and only interview? Not to a news network, not to an investigative journalist. He appeared on The Ellen Show. And it wasn't your usual emotional, heartfelt sit-down. Instead, Ellen walked him through a diagram of how the shooting played out. She barely asked about his trauma or emotional state. She just laid out a timeline with arrows and boxes, like a daytime crime reenactment. It was cold, it was strange, and it made people ask, why? Why did she get the exclusive? Why was the tone so robotic? For some, this raised red flags. Ellen wasn't a crime reporter. She wasn't known for covering heavy tragedies. So why did this deeply sensitive moment get turned into a clinical TV segment? And it wasn't the only time Ellen's image clashed with her actions. People started remembering other odd moments, like when she cozied up to George W. Bush at a football game, joking and laughing while war protests filled social media. For someone who claimed to stand for kindness and equality, her behavior started looking more and more like brand maintenance than personal belief. The more people looked back, the more they started connecting dots. This wasn't just about being rude backstage. It was about a Paterna long-running performance where Ellen controlled the narrative at every turn. Until now. With all this piling up the staff horror stories, the awkward celebrity moments, the strange interview choices, you'd think it would end with a dramatic meltdown. But that's the twist. There was no face-to-face blow-up, no public showdown, no screaming match on live TV. Ellen didn't storm off, and neither Joe Rogan nor Megyn Kelly ever confronted her directly. Instead, they exposed her the new way through storytelling, analysis, and fearless commentary. No gimmicks, no clickbait theatrics, just sharp observations and brutal honesty. And that's what made it hit harder. This wasn't about chasing headlines. It was about cutting through the fog of celebrity branding and showing people what was really behind the curtain. Ellen's empire didn't fall because someone yelled louder. It cracked because two voices owned from the podcast world, the other from broadcast journalism, simply refused to play along anymore. And the audience noticed. The response wasn't just laughter or outrage, it was reflection. People weren't just asking, what happened to Ellen? They were asking, how many others are we blindly following just because they smile and say the right things on TV? That's the kind of exposure that sticks. The kind that doesn't need drama to make an impact. Just facts, patterns, and a little courage to say what everyone else was too afraid to say. And now, no amount of dancing can cover it up. As the dust settled, something bigger started happening. Fans who once cheered Ellen's every move, every dance, every surprise giveaway started seeing her differently. They weren't clapping as hard. They weren't laughing as easily. And they definitely weren't buying the "be kind" message without a second thought. People began turning their attention to other celebrities, ones who seemed too polished, too perfect. The question now wasn't just, is Ellen fake? It was, how many of them are? Because if someone like Ellen, who built her whole career on kindness and relatability, could be hiding a toxic empire behind the scenes, who else was hiding behind the camera? It wasn't just about being mean, it was about trust. Ellen broke that, and in doing so, she became the face of a much bigger shift. A shift where fans no longer accept fake apologies and PR makeovers. Where crying victim from a Netflix stage worth $20 million just doesn't land the same. This wasn't cancel culture. This was accountability culture. The audience had evolved. They didn't want manufactured smiles or perfect personas anymore. They wanted something real even if it was messy. And maybe that's why Ellen's empire suddenly looked so shaky. Not because people hate kindness, but because they're tired of seeing it used as a mask, as a marketing tool. And now that the mask is off, there's no going back. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.